So how do the parties propose I read this stipulation on 472? Yeah, just the top portion, and then this goes back? Is this a summary of what it is, or you want me to read each one?
Yeah, if we have them read.
All right. And this is actually item SC11,
Yes.
right? Okay.
Now we propose just leave this as a information.
All right. Well, you want to move to admit now?
Sure.
Before I read them?
State moves to admit 471, 472.
Any objection,
No
Mr. McGowan?
objection.
471 and 472 are admitted. So, members of the jury, there's a fair amount of information contained in these stipulations, but since they are admitted exhibits, they will go back to you, to the jury for your review. Exhibit 471 reads as follows: the parties in this matter hereby stipulate that items SC11, swab of bloodstain; SC12, a swab of bloodstain; SC16, handgun; SC19, 1 rock; SC20, 3 rocks; SC26, swab of blood on sidewalk; SC33, swab of blood; SC41, swab from black car were recovered from the scene and provided to the Department of Public Safety Crime Lab for testing and analysis. Items 11, 12, 19, 20, 26, 33, 41 subsequently tested positive for evidence of blood. The parties further stipulate that items 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 13, 15, 22, 23, 27, all fired cartridge cases were recovered from the scene and provided to the Department of Public Safety Crime Lab for testing and analysis. Further, items 14, a fired bullet, and 15, a fired bullet, were recovered from Colin Brew by the medical examiner and subsequently provided to the Department of Public Safety Crime Lab for testing and analysis. Finally, items 39, a fired bullet, and 1094-1, a fired bullet, were recovered from Kyle Zentek by medical personnel and subsequently provided to the Department of Public Safety Crime Lab for testing and analysis. Also provided to the DPS Crime Lab for testing and analysis were SC16, the Glock Model 22 Gen 4 40 caliber with an attached light, along with SC37 pistol magazine and 6 unfired cartridges. Terrence Weaver, a criminalist for the DPS Crime Lab, analyzed all of the above items and made the following findings. Items 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 13, 15, 22, 27 fired cartridge casings were identified as having been fired in item SC16, the Glock pistol. Item 39, fired bullet recovered from Kyle Zentek, results were inconclusive, meaning it could not be eliminated or identified as having been fired in item SC16 Glock pistol. Items 14 and 15, bullets recovered from Colin Brew, were identified as having been fired in SC16 Glock pistol. Item 1094-1, fired bullet recovered from Kyle Zentek, was identified as having been fired from SC16 Glock pistol. SC16 Glock pistol was function test fired. No malfunctions were identified. The attached light was operable. Exhibit 472 reads as follows. The parties stipulate that items SC11, swab of bloodstain; SC12, swab of bloodstain; SC16A, swab from handgun; SC16B, swab from handgun; SC18, 5 rocks; SC19, 1 rock; SC20, 3 rocks; SC21, 2 swabs from rocks; SC26, swab of blood sidewalk; SC33, swab of blood; SC41, swab of black car, were recovered from the scene, packaged, sealed, and sent to the DPS Crime Lab for DNA analysis. These items were later compared against known samples for Colin Brew, Nick Peering, Nick Prado, Kyle Zentek, and Stephen Jones. The lab obtained results from each sample as indicated below. SC11, swab of bloodstain, with the result Nick Peering. SC12, swab of bloodstain, with the result Nick Peering. SC16A swab from handgun with the result Stephen Jones. SC16B swab from handgun with the result Stephen Jones. SC18 5 rocks with the result Kyle Zentek. SC19 1 rock with the result Kyle Zentek. SC23 rocks with the result Kyle Zentek. SC21 2 swabs from rocks with the result Kyle Zentek. SC26 swab of blood sidewalk with the result Kyle Zentek. SC33 swab of blood Kyle Zentek. SC41 swab of black car with the result Stephen Jones. Your next witness, Mr. Barker.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state calls Casey Rucker.
Yeah. Is he touched about something different?
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah. Okay.
Might as well.
Okay.
You solemnly swear or affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or do you so affirm?
I do.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr.
All right, thank you. Good morning, sir,
Good morning.
and welcome back.
Thank you.
You've introduced yourself before the jury, but just in case we all forgot, what is your role?
Sure. My name is Casey Rucker. I'm a detective with the City of Flagstaff Police Department.
Okay. And how long have you been a detective?
I've been a detective for just over 11 years now.
All right. And in this case, as we talked about earlier, you had the role of processing the scene. Is that correct?
I did?
All right. Can you describe to the jury what that means in general terms?
Crime scene processing, I think, speaks to the steps that are taken by us to evaluate, record, or document a specific location where it's believed that a crime may have occurred. That location is referred to as the scene. It also identifies or speaks to the collection of items that we've identified to have evidentiary value or potential evidentiary value. So kind of all of those steps put together is just summed up in scene processing.
Okay. And in this case, if you can recall, what time approximately did you arrive at the scene?
About 4:45 in the morning.
All right. At that point, was it still dark outside?
It was.
And what was the state of the scene when you arrived? Describe that.
Well, there were uniformed officers present. The scene had been identified. What I mean by that is yellow police tape had been strung across the roadway of Franklin and around the perimeter of the Mountain View dorm parking lot, identifying that area as the scene.
Okay. And were there, for lack of a better word, were there different levels or sections that were taped off?
There were.
And describe the reason for that.
So there was yellow police tape that's strung across Franklin at a couple different, but I guess in short, to sum up the access points into the area is where yellow police tape was hung. Inside the parking lot at Mountain View dorm, in the parking lot, there was to the west, as we learned from our scene walkthrough, the officers had strung tape that ran north and south across the parking lot. And then later, when additional information was learned that there was a vehicle in that parking lot that associated with that scene, there was more yellow tape hung further west of that, running north and south to make sure that that vehicle was now included into that location.
All right. So if I understand correctly, there was the scene proper where the body was discovered. Is that right?
Right.
And then it was expanded at some point to include the car as well?
Correct.
All right. And so this tape, is that part of securing the scene?
It is. It identifies the scene, but it's also staffed, or the access points to it are staffed with uniformed patrol officers. helping to maintain the integrity of the location and restricting access to allowing law enforcement personnel.
All right. So when you got there, what was the first action of business?
I arrived with Detective Slayton. So these scenes are processed with a team of investigators. And when I arrived, Detective Slayton and I conducted what we call a scene walkthrough, which is really kind of step one, if you will. We met with Officers Herrera and Officer Cota, who walked us through the scene, letting us know what they had observed, items within that location that they had found to have evidentiary value, how they marked them.
Okay. Now, what you indicated earlier, when you arrived, it was still dark outside. Describe the lighting situation, if you could, in that, when I say scene, I'm talking about the scene in the parking lot itself.
The parking lot itself was lit with overhead parking lot lights.
Okay. Were you able to see without use of a flashlight?
Well, sort of, yes. I was able to see and navigate the environment, walk through. I could see in front of me. I was conversing during our walkthrough with Officer Cota and with Detective Slayton. I could see them, but we used a flashlight as we were marking items of evidence within that specific location.
Okay, and when you say marking items of evidence, you're talking about things like shell casings, for instance?
Yes.
Okay, and that would help you identify smaller pieces of evidence?
Right.
But as far as identifying people, did you have any trouble identifying people who are part of your team who are helping you?
I could see them, right, yes.
Okay. And along that, and we've seen photos, and we'll get to some of these photos later, there's a concrete walkway that separates the parking lot from Mountain View Dorm. Is that illuminated as well?
There were lights that were on the side of the west side of that building itself, if that's what you're talking about, and those were functioning.
Okay. So during this process, as you're identifying items of evidence, are you also photographing the items for documentation?
Yes.
All right. And did you take the photos, or did somebody else?
Detective Rodriguez took the initial scene photos, documenting the landscape and the environment of what that world looked like prior to us manipulating any items or furthering our scene processing. I took photos during the evidence collection, marking and making note of what items had been identified and how they were being numbered and what they were being collected as.
Okay. Now, when you're identifying items of evidence, do you know exactly what's going to be relevant for a later investigation?
While I'll concede some items are rather obvious, others are not. So usually we begin with the position that it should be collected unless there's some circumstances that can be articulated on the scene that would rule that item out.
Okay. And is there a certain order that you identify items? For instance, are you focusing on a geographic area, or are you identifying all the shell casings at once? What do you do?
No, so I think you're spot on when you're saying geographical area. We'll start with a specific region, which in this case was the southeast corner of that parking lot, or that area around where the victim was at rest. And then the scene is processed and items are located, and it moves out from there.
All right. And how far out did you go from, let's talk about the location of the body, how far out did you go from there, identifying items?
Well, that entire area was searched, the parking lot area. And then we were out onto Franklin, and additional items were found on Franklin, or in front of the address of 262 Franklin. The search went into the courtyard. I mean, the search of the area was rather intensive, but with respect to items collected, it's Franklin in front of 262, and then it kind of follows west and south into the parking lot.
Okay. And did that include a search of the car as well?
Later that afternoon it did, yes.
And when I say car, I'm talking about the red Mustang identified as the defendant's car?
Correct.
Okay. Judge, if I can approach the witness?
Sure.
All right, this is going to take a little bit of time, so bear with me. First, let me hand you what's been marked as Exhibits 164 and 165. Do you recognize those?
I do.
And do those depict areas in the parking lot in the dark as you arrived?
They do, right. These are part of the initial scene photographs, correct?
All right. Let me show you also what's been marked as Exhibits 274 and 276. What's identified in those exhibits?
These are photographs from inside the car, the red Mustang that was in the parking lot, that were taken later that afternoon when that vehicle was processed.
All right. And then I handed you a stack of exhibits, and I'm going to sit back here and read them off so that we have them in the record. I handed you 182, 185, 187, 188, 190. I also handed you what's already been admitted as 192 and 193, 195, 196, 198, 201, 203, 207, what's been admitted as 209, also 210, 211, 215, 223, 226, 229, 231, what's been admitted already is 233, 235 through 237, 239, 240, 241, 243, 249, 251, 255, 256, and then 371 through 380. Can you just flip through those for me, or have you already, Detective?
No, I was looking through them. These are...
Okay.
Sorry.
Just take a minute and then let me know if you recognize what's depicted in all those exhibits. What you saw that evening and that later that day?
Yes.
All right. Move to admit all the photos that I indicated.
Can you tell me what you...
I can go through them again.
You, just before you went to 274 and 276, there were some exhibits prior to that. Do you remember what those were?
164 and 165, I think is the ones that you were talking about.
All right. Mr. McGowan?
No objection.
All right, so just follow along, make sure I get this
All
right.
right. I'll check them off.
Exhibits 164, 165, 274, 276, 182, 185, 187, 188, 190, 195, 196, 198, 201, 203, 207, 210, 211, 215, 223, 226, 229, 231, 235, 236, 237, 239, 240, 241, 243, 249, 251, 255, 256, 371 through and including 380 are admitted. Did I miss any?
No, that's perfect. Thank you. All right, so Detective, we're going to look at some of these in a minute. But let me ask you, you talked earlier, or when you came and testified earlier during this trial, that you did a Leica scan or a scan of that area. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
And we've seen throughout the trial what's called a true view Leica scan, and that's the one that you have separate scan locations and you can look a 360-degree view. Is that correct?
It is.
All right. Now, on that true view scan, were you able to import these same images and link them up to where the location where these items were discovered?
That's exactly what I did. I just incorporated a hot link into the scan view, and then when you click on it, it just brings up these images here.
Okay, and that was done
relative to each item number.
I'm sorry to cut you off. And that was done in preparation for your testimony today?
Yes.
Okay. At this time, Judge, I'd like to move to admit 317, which is the Leica scan with the addition of the hot links, which incorporates all the images that were just admitted.
No objection.
317 is admitted.
Thank you. I'm going to move back here, Detective, and have you walk through some of these images, okay? First, I'm going to start with 164 that's been admitted. Describe what we're looking at here.
This is one of the initial scene photographs as taken prior to the processing of the scene. To the right, you see the back of the red Ford Mustang that belonged to Mr. Jones.
All right. Now, does this photograph accurately depict the lighting that you could see? Well, let me put it a different way. Does this photo, is it lighter or darker, or exactly how you recall it being when you arrived?
The still photographs are inherently darker than what I remember that landscape being that night. So sort of, because I think the image does a decent job representing the overhead lighting and how you see that kind of amber hue on the ground. But you can also see the added benefit of the white light that is that Detective Rodriguez is obviously using there in the center of the screen.
Okay. In other words, the naked eye could see things that aren't truly depicted in a photograph.
Correct.
Okay. Let me go to 165 now. Tell me what we're looking at here.
You're looking at the driver's side of that red Ford Mustang as we found it that night.
All right. I'm going to switch over to 317, which is the Leica scan, including the hot links that you described. All right, showing 317. Now, when we say hot links, what are we talking about, Detective?
So those little red circles with a lighter colored asterisk in the middle of it, and then linking to it is the SC number, and then a number. That's noting, SC just notes that those items were located from the scene, and then the number is the sequential order in which that item was collected. Okay.
Now, Detective, you may have a laser pointer up there. Tell me if you don't.
I do.
Okay, so as we're describing some of these items, if you could use that. Now, you indicated that there wasn't, you were going in geographic order as far as itemizing the pieces of evidence. So when we say item 43, 42, this isn't where you started?
No, this was towards the end.
All right. If it's okay with you, I'd like to start on Franklin. Let's work our way in, okay?
Sounds fine.
All right. So if I click on 43, it should show us.
Bring up the close-up photograph that I took of what is, or the item that was collected as item SC number 43.
All right. And just for the record, what are we looking at in 43?
We're looking at a baseball cap.
All right. I'm going to go back out. Now 42.
That was a shirt that had red staining that was believed to be or was consistent with blood.
All right, and as we scan, are there any other links that I should be aware of in the courtyard area?
No, sir, not from that scan.
Okay. Let's move down the street a little bit. Now I'm on scan 7, and I believe there's some items here. So let's first go to item 41. And just indicate for the record where that is located.
So across the street, which would be to the south of the address of 262 Franklin, where we were just looking, and a little to the west, we're right next to the driveway accessing the Mountain View parking lot. There's this black-colored passenger car parked on the south side of the street. On the driver's side rear quarter panel, or on the pillar, there was a we could see where the dust on the outside of the paint had been manipulated, and there was a red stain that was there that we thought was blood. And so we swabbed that. And then I later learned that that was in fact blood, and that blood had belonged to, the DNA of that was Mr. Jones, Stephen Jones.
All right, and it looks like you indicated that here as DNA Stephen Jones, number 41. And that was information that was provided to you via the lab, is that correct, the crime lab?
They were lab reports.
Okay. So that's consistent with their report, is that right?
Correct.
All right, so let's click on 41, and what are we looking at?
Well, unfortunately, you can see my hand here better than anything else. But to the right of where the placard numbered 41 is, where I'm circling with my laser pointer, is the the breach and the dust that I was talking about. And right about here where I'm pointing is that small drop of blood.
Okay. Let's go to 40. What are we looking at here?
These are, so now we're looking at the ground. If we could go back, do you mind?
Sure.
So we're at the driver's side rear tire on the ground of that same vehicle. Is a pair of, now you can click on it, I'm sorry, is a pair of eyeglasses that I later learned belonged to Mr. Jones.
All right. I'm sorry. So 39 would be the next one down, and this is where exactly?
It's on the concrete curb leading into the Mountain View dorm parking lot on the red fire lane there. This is a, we took a swab of this stain. We thought it might be blood. It's on the red curb, so I can't tell whether the color of the dried liquid is. But we swabbed and collected that item.
All right. When you swabbed it, did it remove any of it? Did it appear to be consistent with blood?
I can't remember.
Okay. All right, moving in to the Mountain View parking lot area, there's a number of items here on the curb. Now, as you're identifying items, are you just identifying where you found them?
So with respect to the location as we see them here, that is exactly right. That's where they were when we collected them.
All right, so you don't know if things were moved prior to you arriving, or were you briefed on some of that?
Well, some of that I know here had been in another location, and some of these items we'll talk about here in a moment had been placed here by their officers.
All right. So let's go through some of these. This is item 35 on the curb. And what are we looking at here?
35 is an empty beer bottle.
All right. And again, did you know at the time if there was any significance to that particular bottle?
No.
You're just being conservative, identifying items that may have something to do with what you're investigating.
That's correct.
Okay. 36.
A victim's driver's license and his wallet.
And you didn't know how that, do you know how that was placed there?
Officer Herrera had collected that from the victim's pant pocket.
Okay. 38.
38 is the identification for Mr. Jones.
Okay. My co-counsel just told me that I didn't clear up this. When you say victim, who are you referring to exactly?
I'm sorry. That's Colin Brew.
Thank you. And then 37, I believe.
So this is the magazine for the Glock handgun that had been located on the scene. One of the uniformed officers had removed this from the weapon itself, rendering it empty.
All right, and it's in a plastic bag. Why is that?
The officer put it in a plastic bag.
How many, if you recall, Detective, well, let me ask you this. Did you later open up some of these items and investigate further when you got back to the station?
We did.
All right. How many live rounds were located inside this magazine?
There were 5 unfired rounds in the magazine and 1 loose round that the officer said was removed from the chamber of the handgun.
All right, thank you. All right, scanning over to the right here, and just for the record, indicate what direction we're looking at.
You're looking east.
And this is toward the Mountain View dorm, toward one of the entrances, is that right?
Correct.
All right, so let me zoom in just a tad. Item 31, or I'm sorry, 34.
So this was some towels that we found that had red staining on it that we thought was consistent with blood that we had collected.
Now, were you aware before you got there that there was medical personnel on scene?
Right.
And rendering aid to some of the victims?
Correct.
Okay. Is that consistent with the medical treatment?
Most of the items here are in this area.
All right, just so I can separate here, let me zoom in. 30, now here's 31.
A cell phone.
32.
Again, more medical equipment.
33.
So this is a red staining thought to be blood, so we swabbed that, and the swab was collected as the item.
Okay, and it indicates here this is blood Kyle Zentek. Is that consistent with the information you received about the DNA results?
From later, right, analysis from the lab, correct.
All right. Now, as I scan over to the right, there are a number of small orange cones. Can you describe the significance of those?
So those cones are placed to other spots of red staining thought to be blood that weren't collected, and it's just intended to illustrate, for like this photo here, kind of the pathway that follows.
Okay. So when you're identifying items, we should be looking at the yellow placards. The orange cones don't necessarily relate to an item collected. Is that right?
The yellow cones do not show anything the orange cones do not show anything collected. They're to illustrate.
Okay. Item 30 now on the concrete walkway.
Part of a broken necklace.
All right. And if I think the majority of them are going to be at this scan location, so...
Scan 3 has an item, I think is our next sequential order, sir.
Okay. Let me go to scan 3 then.
Right there.
Okay. Item 28. Oops.
So item SC28 was a thumb drive that we found there in the parking lot.
And again, you don't know any significance that this may have in the case, if any?
Right.
Okay. So I notice in this scan view, you can see the crime tape. Is this the outside perimeter?
This is that tape I was referencing before that was placed to include that red Mustang into the scene.
All right, now let's go to scan location 2. And we have quite a few items here. Let me start with 29 out here on the left.
It's a receipt to Walmart that we had collected as found where the hot link shows geographically into the scene.
Again, did you have any idea if this had any significance at all in the case?
No.
Just conservatively identifying everything in the scene?
Yes.
Okay. 25 here on the curb.
It's a package for like gauze or medical that had red staining thought to be blood that was collected.
All right. No, I'm not gonna be able to go in order because of the amount of items here, but let me just start along this curb. This would be item number 3, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And what are we looking at?
Again, we're looking at a cloth with red staining thought to be blood.
Item number 4
is a spent shell casing, .40 caliber.
All right, and did you find other spent shell casings consistent with this one?
Yes.
All right. All right, let's go to number 16.
16 is a close-up photograph that I took recording the handgun and the condition of the handgun as it was when we arrived and when we collected it, or prior to us collecting it.
Okay. And are you familiar with this type of gun?
I am.
What is it?
It's a Glock .40 caliber model 22.
Okay. And are you familiar with this attachment here? I'm pointing to the TLR-1 Streamlight.
Streamlight, right. It's a tactical light that affixes to the weapon. I'm familiar. I have 2 of those.
You have the same model?
I have the same model, yes.
Are you aware of how many lumens it has?
I think Streamlight advertises it at 300 lumens.
All right, thank you. Let's go over to number 17. What are we looking at here?
We're looking at a red hat that was found in the landscape south of that closed parking stall.
I'm sorry, to go back to number 16, this was, you also labeled this as DNA Stephen Jones, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. I can't quite see the, oops, too far probably. Okay, number 18.
So those were rocks that had red staining at the time, thought to be blood, that were collected and then sent to the lab for analysis.
And the result, I believe, is indicated here as?
Kyle Zentek, yes, sir.
Thank you. Now, number 19.
Same as the previous item, just located next to it.
Number 20.
Same, collected rocks with red staining, thought to be blood.
Okay, and this, am I pointing at the right area, this red staining here?
You are, yes.
Were the rocks themselves collected?
Yes.
Okay. Number 24.
There's a pair of eyeglasses found again in the landscape on the corner there that I later learned belonged to Kyle Zentek.
Scanning to the left, let's start up here, number 21.
Again, it's a photograph of rocks with blood.
Number 22.
Is a fired or expended shell casing.
'23.
Is the same as the previous item, also located in the rock landscaping to the east of the closed parking stall.
Number 5.
An expended or fired shell casing found in the parking lot.
Number 6.
Same caliber, expended shell casing.
Number 7.
Is a silver, like, pendant, maybe from a necklace that was found.
Okay, and if we heard testimony from Nick Prado that this was part of that same chain we saw on the concrete walkway, you wouldn't have anything to dispute that?
No.
Number 8.
Part of a chain necklace or the rope of a necklace.
All right. Just make sure I'm getting all these. Number 27.
So this photo doesn't have the placard, the numbered yellowed placard here next to the item. 27 depicts a, can you zoom in on the photo? There's a...
I can.
And then move up and to the right. Or, oh, right, sorry, stop there. Right here, where I'm pointing my laser, is a expended or fired .40 caliber shell casing. So it's just up and right from number where the placard is placed.
All right, thank you. So that's 27. Number, let's go a little bit in order. Number 44.
So 44 is the, like a case that held a blanket that one of the patrol officers had placed over top of the victim as he was at rest.
Number 45.
Is the blanket itself.
Number 12.
12, like the other items we spoke about, is red staining on the asphalt that was thought to be blood, and the item number itself was swabs taken of that.
Okay, and we heard, we had a stipulation read earlier. Are these labeled as SC with the item number?
Yes.
Okay, and that refers to the scene?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Moving, scanning to the left here, number 13.
Is a expended or fired shell casing.
Number 14.
Is a grade colored hat with red staining.
Number 9.
The cigarette?
Number 10.
Was like an ace-type bandage that had red staining thought to be blood?
Number 2.
Again, an expended or fired shell casing.
Detective, if I'm missing anything, let me know. Number 1.
Same, another fired or expended shell casing.
Now, I see some police tape here in the lower right corner. What was that there?
Officers Cota and Herrera, and when the uniformed officers are on scene, and like we were talking a moment ago, during the walkthrough, when they were identifying items that they thought had evidentiary value, that they were marking to try to maintain the integrity, the location of that item, that's what they were marking them with, was yellow police tape.
Number 11.
Was a swab collected of the red blood stain.
What is this chalk outline here?
That was me circling the location to try to better document with photography, maybe another illustrative point to what you were referencing a moment ago with some of the limitations of photography, but that dark red color against a black asphalt, at the time I just didn't feel was photographing, or that I was able to record it as I was able to see it. So I was outlining these areas with yellow chalk to try to help illustrate the location of where some of these stains were at.
All right, thank you. Let me back up, make sure we didn't miss anything. Any other items that I, whoops, failed to click on that you're aware of, Detective? I know we didn't go in numerical order. No.
No, not that I...
All right. Now, Detective, were you also asked to, at a later point, walk the scene from the front door of 262 East Franklin over to where the defendant's car was located, the red Mustang, and then back over to the scene proper where the body was discovered?
I did.
Okay, and did you document that with video?
I did.
And how was that accomplished?
I think maybe procured is the best way to say it, a body camera video from an officer within our patrol division. And I went to that location and walked from 262 Franklin, the route you just mentioned, videotaping my steps.
From the middle of Franklin to the end of the bush line along that sidewalk there?
I'm sorry, going south? With the way we're looking?
Right, the way we're looking. Did you do a measurement that direction? It was one of the measurements we asked you to do.
So I have a measurement of the street and its width.
But you didn't do a measurement from the middle of the street to the end of the bush line?
No.
Is that something you can do like during a break?
Yes.
Okay, we'll come back to that. I take it, since you didn't do that one, you probably didn't do the one from...
I went east to west.
Right. Did you do one from the curb of Franklin on the courtyard side to the end of the bush line?
Not going inward.
Okay.
Perhaps I misunderstood what we were looking for.
Those were a couple requests we made later, may not have been communicated to you, so we'll just ask you to do that at a break. We'll come back to those, okay? Now, if we could go, I think station 5 maybe.
Right here,
Yeah. Further in, facing the scene.
number 2. Okay. This one?
Yeah. Okay. Now, we also asked you to do a measurement of the slope of that gravel. Did you do that?
We did.
And what did you find?
The slope is about 11 degrees.
Okay. And the slope is 11 degrees. What's the difference in elevation between that sidewalk and the parking lot?
I'm sorry, that's what I'm talking about when I say it's got about an 11-degree downslope over an 11.3 foot distance.
Okay. So in terms of elevation, how much higher is the sidewalk from the parking lot?
A couple of feet.
And the length of that gravel is 11 feet.
Just over.
And then you did a measurement from Stephen's car to the further entrance to the parking lot, right? Can we take that view
Sorry, which one?
from Stephen's car down to the other end of the parking lot?
Oh, I'm sorry. Which one?
You're talking looking west,
Yes.
right?
You would think after all this time I'd have east, west, north,
I'm
south
sorry.
memorized, but I don't. So this view, do you have that measurement?
It was over 200 feet, I believe. If you have my report handy, I have that. I have the exact measurement, but it was over 200 feet, I feel confident with.
That's good enough. So from his car to that exit, over 200 feet.
So where I measured from was this point on the parking stall, which is the northwest corner of that painted white line defining the parking stall. And then to the far west end on the north side of the parking lot, there's another entrance that is similar to the one we've been looking at on the eastern side. And I'm right about midpoint on the, what would be the easterly curb.
And there is a fence that we can see. There's brick columns, and then that's wrought iron fence, right?
Right.
That goes around the perimeter of that parking lot, right?
It does.
So once you come in the entrance, we've been talking about the whole trial, the Mountain View entrance. The only other way out is way down there, right?
You mean only other way out to the north? Because you could exit south and, I just want to make sure I'm understanding
Right,
your
so
question.
you could go through the big mob, or you can run that way over 200 feet, right?
Yeah, so if you were looking to exit west, you'd be at least 200 feet, if I'm following what you're asking.
Right, that's what I'm asking, okay. Now, if we could go back to scene, station 2, please. And actually, for this, if you don't mind, if we could go to 317.
Yeah.
Thanks. Now, I'm not going to go through each one of those photos again with you. Spare you that. But did I get the count right? Were there 10 casings?
Yes.
Okay. And the casings are what holds the bullet, right? It's what's expelled after the shot.
Correct.
So there's 10 casings, which means there were 10 shots from that scene,
Correct.
right? Did you, by chance, measure the height of that curb over there?
The curb at the end of the parking stall?
Yeah.
No, but it's measurable.
Okay. I want you to do that at the break too, please.
Sure.
You already said with that walkthrough that you did with the video, You're just walking at a normal pace. You weren't trying to portray the route that Stephen actually took, right?
Correct.
What was the width of the parking lot? Did you measure that?
As far as north to south width of
Right.
blacktop asphalt, no, but again, measurable.
Okay, we'll add that to the list, thanks. Okay, now if we could go, I'm not sure what station this is over by where
You want the same?
it's sort of down the line, sidewalk.
Sure. I think it's number 5.
Yeah,
This one?
yeah, just go down the line to the sidewalk.
Down this way?
Okay, you mentioned those orange cones. So those, each one of those orange cones represented something that you perceived as possible blood,
Correct.
but you didn't collect those.
We collected some of those, not all of those.
But you didn't analyze them.
I'm sorry?
You didn't have them sent to the lab for analysis.
Where the yellow cones are?
The orange cones.
I'm sorry. Orange cones, no.
Okay. So it's fair to say there's a lot of spots of blood on that scene that you did not have analyzed, right?
Everywhere where you see an orange cone.
Right. Was there also blood spots found over in the parking stall, the main scene, if you will, that wasn't analyzed?
We swabbed most of them. I can't think of any off the top of my head that we didn't collect, but the ones that we did, and again, everything's photographed, so we could reference it, but everything we did has a yellow numbered evidence marker.
And if it's got the yellow number, then you did send it for analysis.
Follow the same trail. So there's my thinking there.
Okay. Yeah, wasn't really asking you to explain yourself. I just want to make it clear that there's a lot of blood that wasn't analyzed, right?
Yeah, again, everywhere we see an orange cone, there's no blood collected.
And we've seen a lot of the photos. These are almost all photos you took, right?
Correct.
Okay. But there were a lot more photos you took that we don't see here, right?
Correct.
I want to go over some of those photos.
Sure.
I'm going to show you what's marked as Exhibit 402 through 407.
Yes.
You recognize those photos?
I do.
And those are photos you took of at the scene?
They are.
You had a chance to look at all of them?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to move to admit Exhibit 402 through 407.
Judge, I'm sure they're fine. I didn't get a chance to look at them.
Yeah, let me show you.
Okay.
402 through 407 are admitted.
Permission to publish, Your Honor?
Go ahead.
Have it set up.
Ready? That's mine. Did you hit this?
So what are we looking at here?
We're looking at excuse me, we're looking at a tree that's located to the south, where's my pointer, of the parking lot. So we're kind of south and just to the west of that closed parking stall that we've been talking about this morning.
Okay, so we see a curb over there we're facing the photo on the right side of the photo, right?
Do you want the laser pointer?
No, it's okay. You point to where I'm describing it?
Over here to the
Yeah.
view right, correct.
The other side of that curb is where a lot of the other evidence was collected, right?
Yes,
Okay. I mean, you can't see it there, but that's about where the gun was found, right? On that curb area.
just out of view, that's right. Would be to the bottom right of there.
Okay. Let's go to the next photo, please. What are we looking at there?
So we're looking, now I have positioning to try to orient ourselves. My back is to that parking lot and I'm looking into the tree. And you can see the yellow police tape here in the middle of the image. That's attached to a small branch. And if you follow that branch up to right where I'm pointing here, that branch is broke.
And the next photo, please. And that's a close-up of the broken branch there.
It is.
Okay. And the next photo, please. Just another view of the broken branch.
Trying to document the broken branch, yes, sir.
Next photo, please. Okay. Now this is sort of stepping back. Are you back in the parking lot now when you take that photo?
I can't say that I'm in the parking lot because I would, if I was, I'd expect to see some sidewalk here at the bottom. I don't, but I'm definitely the same view of the parking lot is to my back, looking at the tree to the south. And that depicts maybe not so well shown in the image at the bottom, though, is the branch.
Right. So there's some shadow from the tree, but you can see the branch that has fallen after it was broken, right?
Right.
And it's fair to say that the grounds there are pretty well maintained. You don't see a lot of other debris around, right?
Agreed.
Okay. And we saw that close-up of the break. Fair to say that was a pretty fresh break of that branch.
It looked like it.
Yeah. Is there another photo? Oh, that's just further back, right? Is that closer to the curb now?
Yeah, and it's, again, with my back to the parking lot, I've kind of sidestepped a little to the right.
Okay.
Just trying to orient or place its location.
Is there another one? Oh, and then this gives you a little more orientation of where that tree is compared to where a lot of the other evidence was collected, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And it's the tree that we're talking about with the broken branch is the second one back there, right?
That's right, to the left.
Okay, the one further back.
Yes.
I think that's it, right? Might be a good time to break so we can get those other measurements.
Let me have counsel approach. All right, folks, we'll go ahead and stand at recess for 15 minutes. Please remember the admonition. See you in 15 minutes.